this public hearing meeting to order at 6:02 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Director Wayne.
Hi.
There's next year, I always help. So, I know the first part is public comments, so I don't know if I'm supposed to talk.
Yeah, at this point, we have no community comments that have been submitted or that are present here, so please proceed.
Okay. There is actually no changes to the budget that I presented to you, well, sorry, very few changes to the budget that I presented to you in July. The only change I made to the budget was actually I added capacity in the revenue and the expenditure side. So you'll see, if you look at the reports that I sent, I mean, we can go over them again, but really they're the same, just with modified numbers. The total expenditure amount went up, but the ending fund balance remained unchanged because I add capacity to the revenue and the expenditure side, so they offset each other. And that's only general fund. The rest of the funds are identical to what they were before.
Okay. Board, any comments?
No, every year it gets clearer and clearer.
That is the goal.
Okay. Very good. I would just like to remind the community that you are available and our superintendent is also available if anyone has any questions on the budget. I'm curious what the strategy is behind it. I would encourage them to contact you.
I would encourage them to call me too, or email me. I
Yes.
am usually very responsive.
Please. Okay, great. And so with no further comment, I will adjourn the public hearing at 6:04 p.m.
Might be the fastest. Thank you.
Let me wait 1 minute. So we'll just say at 6:05 p.m. tonight, I will call our regular board meeting to order. So we begin tonight with communication and board recognition. So I will open it to the board, please.
Well, I actually followed this because I love basketball. And our 2018 Orting High School graduate, Isaac Jones, was drafted into the NBA this past NBA draft. So he went this summer to play with the Sacramento Kings as their center. And we wish Isaac all the best of luck, and it would be wonderful if we could get him back here to talk to the kids at some point. That would be awesome.
That would be very cool.
Yes.
And just to add to that, I understand that Principal Freeze beat him early in his high school career in a game of one-on-one, and Isaac has been asking for a rematch ever since. We can get a rematch. I think that would be well attended.
Fundraiser. Yeah, that would be a great
Our facilities and maintenance team and bus garage have been hard at work preparing our school buildings and getting ready for this year, and we want to thank them. And I also note that the special ed team has been hard at work. Both they had ESY and now research from special ed, and they've been hard at work serving our kids. So I want to thank them.
I also would like to thank the teachers. They've had a lot of them changing rooms, moving rooms, and they've worked really hard on that. And I see a lot of people right now at the schools, and so I just want to thank them for their dedication and hard work.
I wanted to congratulate our FFA students for participating in the Pierce County Fair. It was great to see Orting represented there. So hopefully, I didn't hear the outcomes of their pet auctions, but I want to encourage everyone to buy local.
I always forget about that. It's not doing that,
And our ninth grade student at Ording High School, Emma Y is what I call them, that family, because I've had her brother and I know her mom, and I have to say, Emma Y was invited to compete in the 35th Annual Northwest Nationals at Pacific Raceways in July. And she has been racing since she was in grade school.
Awesome, awesome.
Ninth grade, that's pretty young to be invited to it.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
very cool. I also have to say that I've been enjoying over the summer seeing the posts that have been up there about what everybody's been doing over the summer. That's been really fun.
Yes.
I hope that maybe next year we get more community involvement with people sending stuff in, because that was really cool. I enjoyed seeing that.
Anything else? Just one more shout out to our facilities and maintenance team for all the work they're doing over the summer. I think there's probably a lot to do and a little bit of time to squeeze it all in.
Yeah.
So on top of staff moves and everything else. Okay. Wonderful. A lot going on even though school's not in session.
That is true.
All right, this is our spot for community and staff comments. But none were submitted prior to the meeting, so we'll continue with Superintendent Hatzenbuehler's report.
Thank you very much. Have several things to share here, and we'll start with just some happenings around. And I would love to start with the congratulations board. You have been selected to receive an all-expense paid trip to Spokane, Washington in November 2024. So you will be featured speakers at the conference called Perspective, and I think that's a fitting title because we are offering a perspective on how to elevate student voice. And so I've sent an email copying our student board reps, just reminding them about the date and the time. And part of what will happen from here is that probably Director Lee and myself will do some time thinking about the outline, capturing what we did. We think the board has a voice. We would probably start with students though, just lead with our students talking about the importance and relevancy of student voice. How have they been having their voice accessed? How are they helping their peers? And so we'll talk about the structure and routines that we create and what does that look like from their perspective. And probably then pass it to a combination of board of directors to really speak about the value around voice. How does that live in our goals, our measures? And I'm not sure how it's all going to stitch, but in my mind, no later than that November board work session, we'll have a full draft so you can see and practice and figure out what that routine is. And then we will, Aaron and I, take the students over. You have flights, so we will connect and combine, and then share for that presentation. We don't know what day just yet, but we'll be there the whole time, and we'll bring our students with. So we're very excited and honored, and part of this recognition is that you were selected by your fellow board directors. So as you know, directors from across the state got to vote on what they would like to hear, and so Ording is on the map. So there you are, Spokane in November. Just want to remind you mainly about the two things in your board packet today and then the timeline change. So we have finalized our agreement with Quigg Brothers, which will be for your review today, as well as Puget Sound Energy. We didn't feel comfortable having an unclarified timeline at the end of the agreement. So working with legal, we recommended two things. One, a firm time frame, summer 2026, with a significant $5,000 per month fee for every month past that those poles are not relocated. As you know, if the bond is successful, we'll be needing access to that property to develop and move forward to meet our opening of starting that new facility in fall of 2028. So those agreements will be there for your consideration. The update to the really timeline is looking at all things construction related. The latest I got from the city, they're thinking late October, maybe November 2024 before they start.
Oh, really?
So it won't be launching in August immediately after your approval, but upon your consideration, and if you approve tonight, we'll forward those agreements to those respective entities, including the city, and then they'll put together their re-updated timeline. But we think that's not going to be right away. probably a couple months into the school year. Would love to publicly thank the City of Orting. City Council, Mayor's Office had a strong hand in recommending improvements to Chief Emmons Lane. If you have driven that at all, you know, and we drag it a couple times a year, and those potholes do not go away. And so they regraded, chip sealed, and it's a new service that our families, I think, will really appreciate. Staff as well here in a couple weeks. So shout out to the City of Orting for their partnership on that project. And your report. Sorry?
That'll make a lot of people happy.
I do think that'll make a lot of people happy, absolutely. It's that time of the year where we get to summarize the highlights and send that out to every constituent. So we do have draft annual report. You'll see that in greater detail tomorrow. I've asked Bonnie to send you a copy, and it should arrive homes next week and a half or so. But in there we share vital information, statistics about the district, history of achievement. So we didn't have scores, if you remember, a couple years ago. So now we're getting that score update. So it won't be this year's 2024 scores, but it lags a year because we haven't even shared with you and publicly what the scores from 2024 are. So the scores will lag unless we decide to send that out way later, like October. But we don't want to do that because we have other mailers coming out. So key information coming out to all of our families here within the next couple weeks. Kickoff. Share this a couple things. Just want to remind you of the date and time. All of our staff will be welcome back in with Dr. Adolph Brown. His role and background is one of clinical psychology, but he also has that educator background. And so Aaron and I met with him and said, here's what we're focused on in the world of agency and dignity, and how do we personalize our message around humanizing each student and getting to know them. And he'll share this idea around two backpacks, that we have what we see, but it's getting to connect with what we don't see. Our trauma, our experiences, our identities, our history is what really helps to make the difference around a culture of belonging. So he'll give us some ahas. As you know, many of you have heard him speak before, amazing presenter. And I think he'll challenge us with a little bit of how do we do this across the system, and how do we make sure we have that connection with each child and understand their story and who they are. So that'll be fun, but to accommodate his full hour and a half, we will not have all of the featured speakers like we normally do. We won't have unions and myself, and we won't have a whole list of people talking. We're jumping right in, but leading with the idea of student voice, Jaden and Carly will be introducing our key speaker. And then I'll wrap it up. So we'll lead with them, and then part of that, they have a big presentation in November. We have to get them ready and accustomed to speaking to large groups. So that's happening. And then I want to share a little bit about our kickoff of what does that look like through our lens of improvement. That's Dr. Paul Bloomberg. He's written a couple of texts. Leading Impact Teams is one we brought to the district a couple years ago to lift some of those ideas, to try to put some traction in our professional development and our collaboration, to really look at student through the evidence lens and the progress monitoring and build systems around that. His most recent book is really an agency focus, which is how do you elevate student voice in the classroom and in your learning environment. We had the pleasure of having him here all day yesterday. And I will tell you, Cliff Reese, you know he's been here for a long time. His comment today was, this is the best kickoff I've ever had. And what Paul really helped us to work with, we led with that idea around the culture of dignity and how do we continue to elevate and promote that. He really focused on the systems element. So his whole background is around inquiry-based learning and the research behind it and how do you do that. But the idea of impact teams, it doesn't live if you don't build systems and structures and routines to measure and dig into that. And so he really helped think about what are our priorities. And so he's got a network of consultants that are experts in the field. And next week we have our elementary team and our middle school team. Steve sent them the scope sequence. They're looking through our priorities, vetted through what is likely to have the maximized impact on student learning from a student SBA perspective, a Smarter Balance Assessment. And we're trying to have that conversation about, are we really focused on the right things that are likely to improve the outcomes? And the short version is, we don't think so. We think there are some things that are elevated in priority that either have been missing from a curriculum, or we haven't had a curriculum in place. Remember, this will be the third year of a new K-5 literacy. We're in the process of bringing on 6-8. We're about to overhaul K-8 math this year. So we've talked about we need some essential foundations. Well, what Paul is going to be working with us on for a couple years at least, is building the system around identifying the outcome, setting the goal, coming back to that regularly and building a system around it, which means multiple data measures, incorporating student voice, finding ways to progress monitor by student, by standard, and then having the conversation about what do we do in core or intervention systems when they're not meeting those guaranteed viable learning outcomes that we've set. So we're really excited about where that's going to go. As I've shared with you before, but a reminder, he will be our keynote speaker at Kickoff 2025. To all of our staff, focus on that idea of learner agency, because a custodian, a food service employee, someone in the front office can have a profound impact on a child's life, and we need to know what that is and give them tools and strategies, maybe reminders or uplifters about their importance. But then he'll be with us the full day, maybe two, digging in with our PLCs on examining those systems we built this year. Are they having the effect? Are we seeing the growth? Why not? And help us refine our work. So I think it's going to probably take 2 or 3 years to really build tight and deeper systems and looking at what our core priorities are in an ongoing way. But launching that over the last few days was just a highlight. One of the best kickoffs I've ever had. So
That'll
we're
be
really
so
stoked about that.
interesting. I'm really excited to see what he has to say.
And you mentioned they're going to also include how our assessments correlate to the SBA.
Correct, and what we're initially finding, not only do we, with what our PLC's identified and what his team is looking at, and we have some work to do to finalize that out, we haven't hit some of the key priorities in our core, but we don't have good ways to assess. And so I think by even the end of this year, we'll have probably a new diagnostic screener that does better align to the standard and does give teachers and PLCs and administrators and us better information about who is or who isn't. And even better than that, it actually can help provide custom systems for students to intervene and close those gaps.
Great.
So we're really stoked about where that's going to go and think that'll have actually measurable improvement that I hope and believe we will see improvement next year.
So can I ask one, the schools are going to hear about that beginning of the school year?
Yeah, our commitment is that all of our PLCs will be setting goals based on those identified priorities within the first month of the school year.
Wow, that's great.
And then with our next step with Paul, we're going to look through what do we have tools to measure so far, and we're going to script it out. So not only we identify the goal, but what are the at least 4 times a year we're measuring that. And we'll be looking through either IABs, the interim assessment blocks, or the small block, which is more of a narrowed focus, or a teacher-created assessment, diagnostic. So we're going to put those tools, kind of look at what we have and what we need, and then put that together. And we'll be going through that inquiry cycle on those identified priorities this year. But we won't be able to identify and put a system around every priority right out the gate because they haven't even unboxed the curriculum yet.
Yeah.
So over time, that's why I think it'll take probably a few years. So if there's, I'll say 6 focused priorities, over that few-year window, we'll have a system in place to measure those priority
Is he going to emphasize all subject areas right away, or is he going to do, like say reading, ELA, and math, or, because that's
ELA and math will be our start. For a content area like social studies, we believe there's a feeder. So when you think about the informational text standards and what social studies can do to back that up. So we think there's a doorway in. Science, we think we probably have a window this year at grades 5, 8, and 11. So we're going to start with what's assessed. From my conversation with you all, ELA and math are still core drivers in our priority focus, so the minimum is those. But we think science and probably social studies, we can get some targets in too.
The reason why I mentioned that is that while we know at middle school and high school you have subject matter teachers, in elementary you've got teachers that are teaching both of those things at
Yes.
once, and I'm just concerned about how much, we're drilling down at the same time in
You
different ways.
overlap those systems in a way that's sustainable for staff.
Okay.
Because if you don't build the
Yeah.
conceptual awareness and the time and the space,
Right.
boy, you can hand people a stack of tests to give, and if you don't build the system around it, it's not going to do
Right,
it.
especially with the new math.
Exactly. Yep, agreed. So that's where I think we have to build our understanding of what a system is and looks like, and start with 1 or 2 things and do that well,
Yes.
and build that over time.
That's good.
But if we pick the right things, we will see the impact
Oh, yeah.
sooner, of course, right? Great news. I heard back from Councilmember Dave Morrell a couple of days ago when I inquired about impact fees. As you recall, Pierce County, when we testified last winter, said there would be a work group featuring 4 school districts and contractors, and that would happen this summer, and it's almost the end of summer, and we haven't heard what's going on. Well, Councilmember Morrell indicated that Pierce County hired an outside agency, which I actually like, to do a complete analysis about the current state of impact fees and cost, and where things at across the state, what's happening here, and they're going to make a recommendation this fall to council about what were their findings. What I believe, through the conversation with him, that any recommendations in that regard will be made to council this fall with likely adoption or approval targeting 2025, 2026. So that's as much as I know now. We'll obviously be paying attention to what does that presentation look like and when it does happen. I'm not privy to that yet.
I was just gonna say, and it's gonna be a public presentation?
Yes, because all of their work like ours is public,
Okay.
but you know, some things have happened where we don't know.
That's why I asked that.
We want to know what's happening and have an interest in that regard. And just sharing math, I shared with Bonnie today, because I know you're going to review and have the ability to consider our capital facilities plan. A difference between $4,000 and $8,000 is tens of millions of dollars of impact that positively would not only support the facility structures in our system, but it saves our local taxpayers money. Because it means growth is paying a higher share of the cost of growth, which I know has been an interest of yours. Bond outreach, a couple things. So we talked about as a priority with the board, maybe not going to all of the things that we went to last time, but being very intentional. You mentioned this idea of open houses, so that's the schedule. Bonnie will put that out. So if we can get 1 or 2 of you to attend open house with me, then we can set up a little booth. Brittany has already drafted a 1-pager. So 4:30 to 6:30, not only Wednesday in a couple weeks, but Thursday. We have PTR and OMS happening at the same time. They kind of have this idea that it's relevant and easy for a family to go here. It's asynchronous, meaning they can come and meet with whoever, whenever. They're not going to miss out if they come an hour later, hour earlier on any kind of presentation. So we'll put that out, and if you have the ability in a couple weeks to just be present, and Bonnie will work at facilities where we do a tablecloth, and I don't know if we're doing cookies, but we'll have some kind of outreach where we can meet with people and talk about growth and construction.
I can do the OES one. I've got grandkids at both of the other ones, so I probably can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I already told her I do PTO.
Perfect.
Okay, good. I can do OES. I'm out of town on Thursday, so.
I got OMS.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
2 OESs and OMS, and
PTR.
Joanne says PTR, and I will float on day 2. In that regard, before I go into some data, Brittany and I have sent Brittany did, I didn't do it, I just asked her to. We sent our draft of our bond mailer to Strategies 360, and I put more of a detailed update in my weekly report, but we wanted to get through the lens and get their feedback. Are we sharing our information in a way that's likely to resonate and be understood? And the good news is we had lots of positive feedback about what we've drafted. But when we looked at, for instance, a mailer that Pasco did, some of the feedback is maybe shortening the amount of text that we have and try to go with smaller bullets, smaller graphics. So kind of that moved our thinking into looking at the mailer that we're going to send home, which right now we're thinking it's a 6-page mailer with like an overview and a page on each school, because if you remember, most of our survey respondents said they wanted to see something happen at each school. So she's got a draft of what that would look like, and we always need to put information about registering to vote and the price and cost and history and things like that. So we're going to take that draft and from there move from that to creating our poster boards that are on display in our schools. And from there, taking those same graphics and sound bites into my presentation that I do with schools, maybe the 31st Legislative Caucus that we went to last time, we'll do that again. That way we're creating that uniformity of branding in terms of message, look, bullet points. So based on the feedback, it wasn't so much that we were on the wrong track, we were on the right track, but maybe shorten up the scope. And it mirrors what we're seeing in society. People don't spend lots of time watching long videos, engaging in large amounts of text. It's just smaller chunks.
Okay.
So we're going to try to make smaller chunks and build that through line through our messaging. And we think that will have hopefully some positive effect. Speaking of positive effect, why should our participants vote? What's happening? This is actual data that you'll see in our capital facilities plan, and you'll consider the approval tonight. But look at what's happening with regard to growth in our elementary level. So we have capacity for 750 students. Those are seats inside our four walls. So if you look at even what's happening in 2023 or this year, the majority of our students are moved out of those permanent facilities. And look what's happening. The soonest we can build a new school, if approved in November, is 2028. That's the soonest we can have that opened. And we are projected to be 81% over capacity this year. Within just that few school year time frame, we grow to 141% over our design capacity. And you think about the challenges our constituents have talked about in terms of parking and traffic and spaces to eat and what's happening in the cafeteria, what's happening with intervention. And think about through the context of looking at last year where we were 62% over, and what does that look like when we're over twice as full? And think about that for a minute. And why do I have to vote, and why do you keep championing this message as a board? ChatGPT created this for me. We introduced that tool because the way it can mine and analyze data and the speed is incredible. And I have some other bond data from the last election, but I wanted to share the enrollment with you now. This is what happens across the system. So last year we were 31% over that design capacity. When you look at all four schools, 40% this year. By 2028, which is the soonest we can open if that bond is approved, we're all the way up to 85% over our designed or built capacity. So all of those issues that we face not only get progressively worse over time, they get worse really fast. So we need to figure out a way to communicate the urgency and why is this back on the docket and why does this need to happen now. And obviously in our board role we can't advocate for which way to vote, but we definitely need to communicate the story of where we're at today and what will happen if, and make sure our voters have that key information. So part of what Brittany and I will do, we'll create the graphics, the bullet points, the information, and we'll bring that to you and some of our stakeholders to pressure test it, see if we're on the right track, and if we have the right bullets and the right talking points, then we'll start to build that through line in our communication.
I think this would be a good graphic to have at our open house.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you're a K-5 parent, if you're a kindergarten, first grade, are you going to be concerned about that? I hope so.
Oh, yeah.
I hope
You
so.
could just even have copies of it at the table where you're sitting and just show them like a copy, you know.
Yeah, and we can print some copies, have that ready. She's got a draft one-pager. We probably won't have a big giant poster board for you at this point because we want to build a dealer. But if we want to have the register to vote posters out,
Right.
because that is very helpful.
Both the whole school district that you showed before and this one, so that we could, it's just astounding.
Yeah, well, I wanted to close with that just so you get a sense of what's happening on that communication front. We have more to talk about in terms of outreach and connection over time. But for August, I felt like that's enough of a start. And again, our entirety of our capital facilities plan with all of our projections, updated estimates will be for your consideration later tonight. And if you approve, that will allow us the basis to collect impact fees moving forward.
What was K-5 for this year, 85?
We're projected at 81% over capacity. We'll obviously be watching enrollment like a hawk next month and then report that to you.
Before you know it, these kids are gonna have to start eating lunch a half hour after they get to school, just so they can cycle everybody through.
Just to get it through. Okay, thank you.
Makes my stomach flip every time.
I was also thinking that it might be helpful to show them, because a lot of people didn't participate, a lot did, but a lot didn't, the survey and how we took that survey and restructured the bond. I mean, just, even if they're just in a flip book that we can show, one copy at each table and just say, this is what we did. Because I've had questions about it, and I think it would be good to say, yeah, we did the survey and we looked at that, and that's how we made the decisions that we did.
We can do that.
questions? Great, thank you. Now we move on to our financial report. And I saw a few questions, just make sure there's any additional information needed. All's well. Good questions? All's good. Thank you, Director Brandon. And then we have our restraint isolation report.
I have no questions, but I did want to actually comment and thank Director Westover. This report, I actually went back and looked back to years prior. This one has a lot more detail to it. And the actions and the goals, and I just wanted to say how much I appreciated that. This is a very thorough document, and I enjoyed that immensely. Not necessarily the data, but the content.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
And she did a great job of answering my questions.
perfect. Thank you. All right, very good. Moving on to our consent agenda. Got some interlocal agreements.
Actually, Board President Thibodeau, there is a first reading of a procedure.
Oh, I scrolled too fast. My
It's
bad.
okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This is a new procedure about promotion and retention. So no actions necessary. This is the first read, but I wanted to check and see if there's any questions or discussion.
I'm just really happy to see that we have it.
Yes,
I think
yeah.
that, just making sure that everyone knows it's that this is how it's done, and that we don't do it one way here and a different way here is very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. All good?
all good.
Okay, then we'll move that one forward to second reading. Now for the consent agenda. If there are no questions or discussions, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve items 1 through 6 on the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We have quite a few action items for this evening, so I'll begin with the transitional bilingual program. Thank you, Director Lee. If there's no questions or discussions, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve the transitional bilingual program for the 2024-25 school year.
I second it.
Thank you, all in favor? Motion passes. The next item is the Puget Sound Energy Temporary Construction Easement and Agreement. That was highlighted in Superintendent Hatzebeeler's report. So I will take a motion.
Real quick, we have, I'm sure, certificates of insurance on file from Quaker Brothers, holding the district harmless and that. Is it safe to assume that that all was read by legal?
Legal constructed, drafted both agreements and actually modified both agreements. And so what you have for your consideration represents the recommended agreement language as drafted by your attorneys.
I'm sure it was. I don't know why I didn't ask that earlier, so.
That's good question.
Good question,
Yes,
yes.
we don't take things from outside and give them to you without vetting through our legal channels. And in this case, both drafts were amended by our legal team.
Fantastic.
Perfect.
I move to approve the Puget Sound Energy temporary construction easement and the agreement as presented.
I second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. As long as they are out of the way when it's time to go to school. All right. This next one is related, temporary access and storage license agreement. I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve the temporary access and storage license agreement as presented.
Second it.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Next one is a resolution number 7, 2023-2024 for the 2024-2025 budget adoption. Can I get a motion?
You can.
I was like, my lucky day.
I move to approve resolution number 7, 2023-24 for the approval of the 24-25 budget, as well as the 4-year budget summary and the 4-year enrollment projection as outlined in the budget presentation.
Can I get a second?
Seconded.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Just so you guys know, I listen, ding, 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 for all your voices saying all the time. Item number 5 is resolution number 8, 2023-2024 for the capital facilities plan.
I will move to approve resolution number 8, 2023-24 for the capital facilities plan.
Can I get a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. The next item is an addendum to the superintendent's contract. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve an adjustment to the 2024-2025 superintendent's base pay as presented with an effective date of 7/1/2024.
Second?
Seconded?
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. The next item is addendum to executive directors and directors' contracts. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve an adjustment to the 24-25 directors and executive directors base pay as presented with an effective date of 7/1/2024.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. The next item is our 2024-2025 non-represented salaries. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the 2024-2025 non-represented salary schedule as presented with an effective date of September 1, 2024.
Can I get a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 9 is our new CTE conditional certificates.
I move to authorize the district to request new CTE conditional certificates through the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction ahead of September 1st, 2024, on behalf of the career and technical education teachers listed within the presented memo.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. I need to apologize. I just saw that this said presented by Director Christensen. I didn't give her an opportunity to speak. Oops. I apologize.
President Thibodeau, thank you. No apology necessary. I know that each year we have come forward to ask for your approval in getting conditional certificates so that we can start the beginning of the school year with all teachers in place. The ones that were new are that you just approved are due to master schedule change where we've identified teachers who are capable and willing to teach some of our CTE programs, and the one that you are looking at, or two that you are looking at now, one being an individual memo and the other one being renewals of multiple people. They have been in place for some time. The one for the individual person is our last renewal. He has been working quite a bit on gaining his regular certification through an out-of-state university, and he has now completed that program. And so we're basically trying to fill a gap, but we anticipate that he will
proactive with that. just
Yeah.
to
Yes,
make
because
sure.
snafus do happen, with that.
Right. Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then the second one is presented by, so I just want to make sure that's all the information.
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you.
So the second action item related to the conditional certificates is item number 10. So can I get a motion?
I move to
Can I ask a question? I should know this probably, but how long do they have to get their CTE certificate?
Yeah, that's a good question, and part of that relates to how long will OSPI renew a conditional?
Okay.
And so I think it's probably more accurate to say, I've seen those go for years and years, 8, 10 years at a time on a renewal. And so what's often might happen is that we put a timeline as a system and say, we are not going to move, you have to move to the permanent certificate. But I believe, Director Christensen, 2 or 3 years for a conditional, how long is that, 2?
They're renewed every 2 years, and it's very situational, as you said. Sometimes the educator, in order to have a different type of certificate and not go through the conditional, they would have to go through a CTE program. Oftentimes, they find that they want to do that because you cannot move over on the salary schedule unless you have that program. You can only go down in experience, but not over in education, so oftentimes that's a motivator. But with regard to our regular educators who we ask for the master schedule to teach some of our CTE programs, at this time our process is that we would ask for renewal, for your approval of submission of renewal regularly, because they don't need to necessarily go through a program. They have their regular certificate in place, and it is simply backfilling that CTE area. So those would be indefinite.
Okay.
Good question. Okay. Very good. Any more questions? Okay. Then can I get a motion again? Thank you, Debbie.
Certainly.
I move to authorize the district to request CTE conditional certificate renewals through the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction ahead of September 1st, 2024 on behalf of the career and technical education teachers listed within the presented members.
I second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. So that was a lot of the business that we just blew through pretty quickly. I think I would just like to comment that there's a lot of preparation and review of these action items prior to the meeting. So that's why we don't discuss them at length here, is that there's been quite a bit of homework and prep work in advance of these actions, with our questions being answered and considered and all of that. So we just knocked out quite a bit of business in a few minutes, but it's all very important to district operations, and I'm happy to move these forward. All right. So now we managed to get to board comments by 6:45 this evening.
Thank you. You know, it's not 90 degrees outside, and there's still a little bit of life left in the day, so that's good.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to give a shout out to the middle school special ed teachers. I have been so impressed. So the life skills teacher and the resource room teacher collaborate together to truly make an individualized program. I know for a fact, for somebody this week, and I've been so impressed that they work together to make it work for my favorite student. And the aides, not the regular people, are being flexible and truly working as a team. And that's tough to do, especially when they're changing from one day to the next to make it successful. And I was very impressed, very impressed. So I had to give them a public shout.
Excellent. Anything else?
And the band is out there practicing. see the runners and everybody running by, because see all the action here in the neighborhood. Kids have been out there ready to go.
That's right.
Awesome. I'm excited. The year's just around the corner, so let's enjoy these last few weeks.
Yeah.
Last couple of weeks, I guess. And be ready for kickoff. That'll probably be the next time we're all together. And I'm excited to support the district in starting off a new strong year. And I'm excited to hear Dr. Brown.
Yes, me too.
All right.
It will be fun.
With nothing further on our agenda, I will adjourn the meeting.